What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Pressing Coverage. I'm your host, Greg, the sports bully Boucher, and this is the show where we tackle the talk the other guys just won't. And as always, we're brought to you by the Cold Front Report. So make sure you're following us on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your YouTube. Check us out at thecoldfrontreport.com. A lot of great articles, a lot of great content going up there, a lot of great people at the Cold Front Report. So let's jump right into the business here on Pressing Coverage. Today's episode, we're going to talk about something that I don't believe is getting talked about enough out there. And that's a player who I think is going to play a huge role on this team going forward. And it's practically not even being mentioned. It's kind of an afterthought. And actually, there's a lot of talk about him not even making the roster, which I find completely asinine. And we'll get into that. But that's Harrison Phillips. And, you know, I think he's a guy on this team who's going to play a big role. I really do. If you look at where this team lacked last year on the interior of the defensive line. Now, everybody and their mother is going to tell you Star Lotulelei is the solution. He's the answer. He's going to solve all our problems. The return of Star Lotulelei is going to make Ed Oliver an all-pro. Tremaine Edmonds is going to be an all-pro. Everyone's going to be an all-pro. Star Lotulelei is going to dominate. He's the answer. He's the answer to all our prayers. I don't think that's reality. Now, don't get me wrong. Star Lotulelei, I think, is going to serve a role on this defense. I think there's a job for him to do. I think in his 9th year as a pro, I think he can be a serviceable nose guard. I think he's going to control the line of scrimmage. I think he's going to be able to help those guys out. But let's be honest here. As I know we were desperate for him last year, and I know a lot of us, we were kind of forced to look at the way the interior of our defense have played and said, man, if we only had Star. And yeah, he is better than the guys we fielded last year. And we certainly shouldn't have been playing Ed Oliver out of position as much as we did last year. And we were kind of caught off guard with him opting out, and the last minute solutions of bringing in Vernon Butler, which we'll get into, was not the answer. But I think our need to have that one technique there kind of inflated what the value of Star Lotulelei really is on this defense. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not hating. I think he's going to help us because, like I said, he's better than what we had last year. But let's take a look at Harrison Phillips. Now, this is a guy that was drafted in the 3rd round in 2018, who had a pretty solid rookie year as a rotational defensive tackle, playing behind Star, playing behind Kyle Williams. And I think, a guy who 30-something tackles, a few tackles for a loss, was pretty solid in his rotational role. And looking at him going forward from there, coming into his sophomore season, the expectations were he was going to take on a larger role, even with the addition of Ed Oliver. And that was cut short. Major knee injury, week 3, Harrison Phillips goes down. End of story. And he's kind of forgotten about. And we're looking at, the Ed Oliver show, and all eyes on him, and rightfully so. And I think there's mixed reviews out of his rookie year, but that was to be expected. And you look into 2020, the return of Harrison Phillips. Now, the difficult thing there, even in normal times, rehabbing from a major knee injury, a major knee surgery, it's a hurdle. It's an obstacle. Not a lot of players come back 100% right away. The confidence isn't there. The conditioning isn't there. The strength isn't there until they get some weeks in the actual NFL. Harrison Phillips didn't have that last year. Harrison Phillips was a casualty of the COVID offseason. It wasn't a normal offseason. The workouts weren't normal. The OTAs weren't there. The preseason camp wasn't normal. The preseason games weren't there. And the preseason games are pivotal. And that's a place where guys like Harrison Phillips get their confidence back, get their game shape back, and be kind of get comfortable getting into that groove as they go forward. So what we saw from Harrison Phillips in year 3 was kind of like a rehab season for him, catching up on all the time he kind of missed in that offseason that he didn't get. So we didn't get any wow factor from him. He was kind of brought along slowly, and I think he actually played in about 30-something percent, 33% of available snaps last year, and he missed a few games and brought along slowly. So there wasn't much there from Harrison Phillips in the production standpoint. And, I mean, we did get some flashes of him. He did make some nice plays. He was disruptive at times. But obviously, two things came into play. His rehab, which I think was extensive. I think that they needed to get him on the field in practice and work him back slowly, which was the right thing to do because, like I said, he didn't have the normal preseason practices and conditioning and workouts that would be normally granted to these players. He didn't have that. So I think they use somewhat of the early season to kind of bring him along. And as the season progressed, like I said, we did see some things from Harrison Phillips. But it wasn't enough. And what we did see was a hole at the one technique. Vernon Butler, excuse me, Vernon Butler was not the answer. I don't think he ever was going to be the answer. Big for nothing, 6'4", 320+ pound guy, first round pick of the Carolina Panthers. And he really has never done much in the NFL. I think he's relatively considered a bust. And I think his season in Buffalo last year just kind of, reiterated that fact to me and a lot of other people. So we are searching for the one technique. And we have now Star Lotulelei coming back. I think there was a little bit of nervousness that he wasn't going to come back. And then we saw the workout tapes and that he's going to be reporting to the mandatory workouts. So that's great. It's good to have that guy back because having Star Lotulelei back means less Vernon Butler, Ed Oliver playing the traditional 3 technique. But if you see the rotation that gets played here on this defensive line, I'm not a fan of it entirely, but it seems to be what they're doing. They like to rotate a lot of guys in and out and in and out. You're going to see Lotulelei and Phillips probably rotate an awful lot this year, and that's fine. So I think what you're going to get, Harrison Phillips is a more athletic version of Star Lotulelei. And I think what we can get out of him this year in 2021 is he is now going to be 100% recovered from the knee injury. He's conditioning. He's getting the offseason under his belt right now as we speak. He's working out. He's in good shape. He looks great. He looks solid. He's never been a big, pillowy defensive tackle. He's always been a well-maintained machine. And he looks that right now. If you've seen some of the clips from him coming out of OTAs, he looks good. And I think now the confidence is back. You said you look at that last quarter of the season last year when he was starting to get more playing time. He looked confident. He looked good. He was disruptive. So I think the confidence is there and the rehab with him is complete. So now you look at Harrison Phillips entering year 4, and you look kind of back at his career. His rookie year was solid. He had a great rookie year considering what his role was. He lost his sophomore season due to a knee injury, never really got to kind of get underway. And then year 3, due to COVID and everything else that was going on, he really didn't get the opportunity to kind of compete at his best and show what his game was last year. So year 4 is really going to be his sophomore season, I think. And I think those people that are writing him off, I think they're sadly mistaken. If you look at and see the talent that he has. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that Harrison Phillips is Aaron Donald or, the next Warren Sapp. I don't think he's any of those things. But he has a role to play in this defensive line. And I think what we're really, really, really needing is a one technique who could control the line of scrimmage, who can eat blocks, who can keep traffic clear from Tremaine Edmonds, who can keep Ed Oliver at the 3 technique and let Oliver face more, one-on-one matchups from the 3 technique and be disruptive and be the quick, bursty guy that he is. I think Harrison Phillips fills that role. Now, like I said, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro. I don't think he's going to, break any records. But I think that his role and his ability to fill that role is being very widely overlooked. And to those people that think that, he may not make the roster, and, I think that's just idiotic. He's in year 4 of his contract. It's a contract year for him. We're not paying him much. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's not putting any dent in our cap space. And what else do you have in terms of that one technique? Who else is in the waiting that we have? We didn't draft anybody. We didn't bring anybody in the offseason to fill that role. So you have basically Star Lotulelei, who hasn't played in over a year, who's in his 9th year. I'm not wishing anything on him. I'm just stating the facts. The man is a 9-year veteran on the interior defensive line. He hasn't played in the season. Now, I agree, he looks good, his little workouts and stuff like that, but those are workouts. That's not a 17-game NFL grind plus the postseason. So Star Lotulelei looks good. I'm excited for him. I'm optimistic for him. But things do happen. Players wear out. Players get bumped and bruised and nicked. So if Star Lotulelei, excuse me, hold on a second here. all this pressing coverage here got my throat a little verklempt. But like I said, if Star Lotulelei doesn't perform as we're all expecting him to, the anointed savior of this defense, if he doesn't come through, then what is your solution? If you cut Harrison Phillips, which, like I said, I can't even believe I'm saying that, but I am, because there is that kind of conversation out there in Twitterverse that, he might not even make the roster. So if Star Lotulelei, the anointed savior of this defense, the sworn protector of Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds, he's going to make everything all right, doesn't perform up to standard, and he isn't healthy for the duration of the season, what's your solution? We're back to where we were last year, and we all just got done complaining and crying about how terrible it was last year. Vernon Butler, is that your answer? Is Vernon Butler, the big for nothing, your solution at the one technique? I hope not, because he proved last year that he couldn't hack it. He got pushed around. He was large part the reason Tremaine Edmonds regressed last year, because Tremaine Edmonds had to work over the top of Vernon Butler's big ass all game long when he was in there. Are you going to bump Ed Oliver back over to the one technique? I mean, we just got done having an entire season and off season talking about how terrible it was that Ed Oliver had to play the one technique, and he's not fit for eating double teams and holding that down, and what a detriment it was to his progression. So is he going to be your solution to bump over and play the one technique? I don't think so. Justin Zimmer, I like the kid. I think he's going to do some good things. I think he's going to be a nice, cheap alternative to some of the other players that we have coming up. But is he going to be the one technique? I mean, he's a 290-pound D tackle, and he looks great. He looks like a brick shithouse. But is he the block eater? Is he going to be the double team eater and the disruptor on the line of scrimmage and keep people clean? I don't think that's his style. So if you go ahead and you write off Harrison Phillips, where does that leave us next year if we don't get the Star Lotulelei that everyone's claiming he's going to be? Which I have to remind you, he wasn't in his 4 years here, or I guess 3. He really hasn't been the dominant guy that we paid for. We paid this guy a ton of money to be the that guy in the middle for us. He hasn't really been there. He's had some really bad plays out there. He's gotten his butt kicked, and he's been pushed all around the field, and he hasn't been that stout. And then he's had some times where he's kind of proven himself and that he's done the things that we thought he could do, but he hasn't been consistent. He hasn't done enough in his time here in Buffalo to make me 100% confident that he's going to come out in 2021 in his 9th year as a pro and deliver consistently. I think that Harrison Phillips is going to be the tandem with him, and going to be a guy who is really on the cusp of breaking out to his, to what Harrison Phillips is. Like I said, I'm not saying Harrison Phillips is going to be an all-pro next year. I think we're going to get the best version of Harrison Phillips next year. And I think that's a very important thing that I don't think enough people are realizing. I get it. The off seasons are hectic, and the draft and free agency and the trades, and we just we reappropriated some money from Stephon Diggs, and we're gonna go out and we're gonna do this, and Zach Ertz is coming to Buffalo, and maybe Julio Jones. I get all that. I'm in on it too, and I'm chiming in and I'm tweeting about it and all that stuff, and I get all that stuff, because the off season becomes a desert for conversation and worthwhile material that we kind of just latch on to anything we can, because we're fans and we love Buffalo Bills, and anything that pertains to them we're willing to talk about. So I think in all that, Harrison Phillips got kind of lost in the mix, and that's fine, and I'm glad I'm the guy to bring it to you. So in 2021, as the season progresses and Harrison Phillips is making some plays and doing his job, we can all go back to this episode here and say, hey, the sports bully, that's the guy who said it, and I have no problems being, I'll die on that hill. I'll be the lone guy cheering for him and saying that Harrison Phillips is going to be a major cog in the machine on this defense. So I think, like I said, to reiterate everything, I think we need to pay some attention to that the one technique position, where I think too many people in Bills Mafia and all around Bills are just assuming Star's back, we're good to go. And I'm not one of those guys. I think having him back is a good thing. I think that's great because we need some able-bodied one-tech nose guard guys that could do what that role requires. And he's that guy. But I don't think he's going to come in and be the end-all be-all there. And we have to have a fail-safe behind him, and we don't. We didn't do that in the draft. I really, really, truly believed at some point in the draft that we were going to make a run on a nose guard type of guy. It wasn't a great draft for nose tackles. There was a handful, and I think there was a time in the fifth round where I really wanted to see a Daryl Slayton guy out of University of Florida. I think he would have been a really good project-style nose guard, big, strong, a little bit of athleticism, could move. I thought that would have been a good move, but I'm not going to sit here and trash our draft. I really believe that we needed to address that position because you have the question mark around Star Lotulelei. You have Harrison Phillips in a contract year. I really thought Vernon Butler would be looking for a new job, which he probably should be, but that's a conversation for another episode. But we didn't really address that. And the offseason, free agency wise, there wasn't a ton of mid-level nose guards that we could bring in, because if you really look at what we're doing on the defensive line, we're paying a ton of money across that line. And I think there's a consensus that we're not getting enough production per dollar that we're paying for him. But all in all, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Stay tuned for further episodes from Pressing Coverage. I'm gonna get them to you when I can, when things come up that I think deserve some commentary on and stuff like that. But like I said, keep your eyes on Harrison Phillips, and don't forget, I told you so. When 2021 season rolls around and he's playing well and probably outperforming Star Lotulelei, and he's being disruptive and making some plays and helping. If you see Ed Oliver having a good season, and you see Tremaine Edmonds having a good season, and Harrison Phillips is on the field more than 30% of the snaps, you'll know it's because of him and what he's doing up front. So, as always, I'm Greg, the Sports Bully Boucher. I'm glad to be with you, and all those who tuned in, I appreciate the love. Leave a comment. Hit me up on Twitter. It's at the Sports Bully 1. I'm always on there. I'm always talking some smack and getting into things. So hit me up out there. And as always, like I said earlier, make sure you're following the Cold Front Report on all your social media platforms. Stay tuned. Thanks for checking us out.